Welcome to Carbon Connects, looking at the challenges pharma has faced, it currently is facing, and what it will be facing in the future.
I could label the last 3 years as one of the most interesting in my career. I am really witnessing more and more willingness of people to evolve, to develop, and to move forward.
What makes a good agency pitch when they come to you? Hello, I'm Henry Regan and welcome to this episode of Carbon Connects. Today I'm joined by Goran. Hello, Goran.
Hello.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and your job.
First of all, good morning. Thank you for this invitation. I really enjoy the pre-conversation and I hope today as well. So I'm already more than 25 years in the pharmaceutical companies, in the pharmaceutical industry. I am a physician by training, worked in children's hospital for 3.5 years and then moving to the pharmaceutical industry where I went through the sales and marketing, clinical development, clinical research, and at latest 15 years, medical affairs. And I think we are hearing these days that transformation is the buzzword. So actually, I'm transforming as well in my new role, so there will be some new roles as well coming very soon, a couple of weeks.
And so let me know a little bit more about the last 3 years, where your role is now, and potentially the next 3 years as well. How's it going to change?
I think if you are asking today 100 people, most probably there will be more opinions how this will be changing. So let me start with what we know already, what was 3 years ago. I could label the last 3 years as one of the most interesting in my career. First of all, my role was involved into the innovation within the medical affairs, but as well beyond medical affairs. And in this capacity, I really did have an opportunity to interact with the people in the company and with the people from the other companies and to exchange really great ideas about how we are transforming, evolving, and developing. And this comes from the technology, but this comes from the side of the technology, but it is as well very important to include the human component. In a sense that I think more and more people are aware that technology is evolving in exponential way, and if we as human beings are not following, not maybe the pace because it's not possible, but at least the rhythm of the changes, we will finally maybe be outdated. So I am really witnessing more and more willingness of human beings, of people to evolve, to develop, and to move forward.
So let me know a little bit about the last 3 years and where your role is now, and the next 3 years and where it's going to change.
So yes, I already mentioned the word transformation. I believe strongly that we are currently in the phase where we are in the transformation towards the major disruption. And I will explain what I mean with this. Currently, we are witnessing that the technology, that the large language models, that artificial intelligence is really exploding in its development. It's almost like weekly news. Now, in this week, there are some major updates and so on. And we are, as a pharmaceutical industry, we are using some of the benefits of it currently for the improvement of automatization, improvement of search functioning, improvement of synthesis of summaries of the large text and so on. Now we are more and more generating text and so on. However, I strongly believe that in a very near future, the disruption will be impacting the full healthcare system. And as such, pharmaceutical industry will need as well to modify business models and so on in order to be able to stay the trustworthy partner of the healthcare.
But that's a good point. I mean, how do we stay patient-centric with a digital landscape that's ever-changing? Is that possible?
That's now my personal opinion. I even think that we might become much more patient-centric. And now I will tell you what, and this is not just opinion, this is as well the feeling coming from the personal experience, witnessing the patient journey of my parents in the recent years and seeing that healthcare systems currently, as I like to call them, are more sick care systems, where there is very low level of prevention, very rarely in any of the healthcare systems. Then everything is focused on the moment of diagnosis and allocation of the respective treatment, and then the focus of the healthcare providers are going down in a follow-up, meaning patients are in most of the cases left alone, and if there would not be social media, patient organizations and so on, they will be completely left alone. Now, if you just can imagine that one of the function which could be potentially first targeted by the large language models is the diagnosis point and is the allocation of the treatment, which will augmenting the responsibility of the HCPs, I hope personally that this will release a little bit of time of the physicians to focus on the human side of disease and of treatment, which means once patient is having diagnosis, once patient is getting his treatment, he's not just left to go home and come back in 6 months for the control visit, but he or she will be taken on the journey together with a physician who will be then looking in holistic lifestyle patterns and so on and support patients. So it might be, I may be too optimistic, but it might be even beneficial for this human component in the healthcare environment.
And how can you facilitate that in your role?
Another point, which is just my personal opinion, if healthcare system would be evolving in the direction which I was saying, of course the pharmaceutical industry needs to evolve in the same direction, which means the great people who are working currently supporting physicians in making the diagnostic decisions or making treatment decisions will be hopefully focusing on how can we support patient journey after the diagnosis, or maybe even how can we support prevention programs in where the HCPs will be potentially more involved. And that is completely the new business model of pharma industry, of healthcare systems as ecosystem at all.
You talked about your past in clinical, but what is more important in clinical practice? Clinical evidence or clinical judgment?
That's a difficult question. I would dare to say that one or another is not more or less important. Both of these are not equally important. It depends on the patient situation to the patient situation. And of course, it depends as well on the healthcare provider and the level of his knowledge, his routine, and his or her experience as well. You cannot make sound judgment without having basic knowledge. So evidence is critically needed. You need to base your experience upon some knowledge. However, just the knowledge which is currently available out of the clinical trials, out of the observational trials, real-world evidence and so on, is sometimes not sufficiently enough in respect to the personality of the patient sitting in front of you, where you might have this individual physician's judgment that maybe A is better than B, even though if evidence potentially on the large scale of 10,000 patients did say something else. So I think both of these are now incorporating, and what is now even more observed is that having supports like LLMs is adding a huge value. It's augmenting really the decision-making of the physicians, because it is enabling physician to have access to the wealth of data which potentially he or she wouldn't have previously. So you have evidence, you have then the physician's judgment, and then you augment this with the wealth of data through the LLM, which is actually evidence as well. but not only evidence. LLMs are taking as well the social media experiences, chat rooms, and so on. So you have wealth of evidence plus the real-world evidence plus the opinions. So it's very, let's say, it's very interesting, and at the same time, it's very challenging, because physicians then need to make their opinion in a sense, can I trust this now additionally, or should I trust my gut feeling?
And how important is expert opinion on that as well?
Oh, very much, very much. We've heard yesterday at the conference that expert opinion, key opinion leaders' opinion are driving in more than 65% decision-making of the HCPs. So it is critically important.
So how do you maximize expert opinion?
It's a very good question. If you allow me, I will change the word maximizing into maybe endorsing, because experts do have very strong opinions, and this opinion is mostly combination of the very well evidence which they are mostly participating in gathering, and then their own experience with either in their own practice or witnessing the practices of the collaborating hospitals and so on. So they have very strong opinion, and I would say our work is not about maximizing, it's about endorsing, and if necessary, if evidence is changing in a real world setting, in a real life setting, modifying those opinions, because the praxis start actually showing that evidence A might be slightly different than out of the controlled clinical trial setting. When then you, in the real world, when you are then incorporating a lot of factors which were not taken into account in the clinical trial setting. So how we are doing this is actually collaborating with the experts and so on, either through the some clinical, clinical trials phase 4 are mostly happening after the approval, but mostly through this real-world setting, making some observational studies, making some trials which are addressing some specific topics which are not addressed through the clinical trials. So gathering new evidence through the practice. That would be, in my view, the best way how you can endorse the opinion of key opinion leaders, and if necessary, to modify it in respect of what science is telling you.
And that comes down to data. How important is data, and how much has the use of data changed over, let's say, the last 5 years or so?
I would be maybe a little bit philosophical now. So we are now thematizing data a lot. I think our predecessors living in caves worked upon data, because when they looked out of the cave, they were gathering data, what is happening out there. They didn't put it in computer on the laptops, but they put it here in their own laptops, and they were working according to the data. So I think nowadays we are more thematizing data because we are aware of how we can digitalize the data, and we are aware of the wealth of the data we are having right now. So data is not a new topic. It's something which we are, as human beings, living since we are on this earth. Now, because the size of the data is now increasing exponentially, that is now where we are in a challenging position, when we are challenged, how we are taking all of those data into account when we are making some of the decisions. 5 years ago, when we still didn't have such tools, I think we are very comfortable living and making decisions with the data we are having. And my data and your data most probably were different in this, but we were comfortable in making decisions. Now I think people are more in uncomfortable situation when they're making the decision, because they are always thinking, oh my God, did I have the last update of this? Have I seen the last guidelines? And it is just on the touch screen. So while this might be very endorsing my knowledge and making decision, it might as well bring a little bit of confusion, because sometimes people will be overwhelmed with the data, and then you will be not paralyzed, but making more difficult decisions than previous, having less data and being much more comfortable in making the decisions which potentially were even wrong.
So you've got a lot of people in a very strange place at the moment in terms of them as a workforce. What is the future of the workforce within pharma?
I love this question. It's very close to my heart. I'm very human being oriented. So while currently full focus is on the technology, I think we need to shift the focus to the human beings. Psychology will be most probably one of the competencies leaders and lateral leaders and actually co-workers should have. We are just witnessing that we have different behaviors right now with being aware of power of the large language models and so on. We have denial group of people, we have confusion and fear, and we have currently relatively small group of people who are completely endorsing the tool. We should not forget that the majority of the people are in the first two groups. And we should really take a lot of attention and a lot of care taking those two groups on the journey together. Because there is this saying which I'm referencing, and I'm really sorry, I do not know whom should I reference to, but saying, I will not replace the people. People working with AI will replace people who are not working with AI. And that, I think, needs to be in the top of mind of the leaders, that we need to take majority of the current population on the journey at the pace they can deliver, but still at certain pace, which is not just waiting for the next decade to come.
How long is it going to take?
What?
The training and upskilling of a whole workforce.
Well, if you are seeing now how technology is evolving, recent release of the large language models, which is interacting with you through the voice, through the audio, through the sound, and so on. So it's conversation. It's like two of us now working together. So technology starts mimicking human beings at large extent. I would not expect that the majority of the people needs to code, even though now with ChatGPT you can even get the code even never working with the codes. But I don't think it's about coding. It's about how we are interacting with large language models in order to get what we will need to enhance or augment our activities. So in my view, the first barrier is not technological knowledge, it's more psychological barrier. I don't want to work with machine. Or I deny to work with machine, or whatever denial could be. It's more like breaking this bound and saying, okay, that's co-worker. And once this is happening, I think we might even start developing even more sophisticated communication skills. If you are nowadays looking what's happening on the Twitter and so on, communication is a very base level. Whatever we are now learning how to communicate with large language models, we are actually improving our communication skills, because people were saying, oh, your prompt needs to have this, you need to be polite, you need to be this. Suddenly you start communicating with the LLM in much human way than with your neighbor. So I hope, again, optimistic view, that we might start developing those even communication skills in order to get the best out of the LLMs. I'm putting the disclaimer, it's very optimistic and it's Goran's opinion.
You have a lot of optimism, and that is great. Where do you need the support in your role in terms of external vendors and agencies?
We are as well, I would say, as industry overwhelmed with the offerings. It's not very easy to be seen through what is the specifics about the offerings. Currently, I think most of the offerings you are confronted with are promising you everything on the table immediately, and that's not true. At the same time, pharma industry is a very developed industry, so it's very capable, and we have great people working over centuries for the pharma industry, which means pharma industry is developing as well the certain solutions in-house. So having niche needs recognized and fitting into these needs would be, in my view, more beneficial as well for the providers, as well for the pharma industries. Because if I come to you and say I can solve your whole problem from a clinical trial until to promotion, most probably you will not see it as an honest offer, as a valuable offer, and currently you're doing 90% of it by yourself. If I'm coming and offering you very specific niche activity, which you are either missing the competencies or you do not have capabilities or whatever, and this is relatively specific, I believe companies might tend to approach those people and then just to fill the gap where they have the gaps. So that would be my, again, personal opinion.
And what makes a good agency pitch when they come to you?
Specific pitch. I had a small conversations, and it is good that everybody would like to be customer-centric. And if you want to be customer-centric, you need to know customer. That's everything fine. Now, in the busy world, like with the HCPs, like with the pharma, well, actually, the whole industries are very much busy nowadays. If you approach one and say, can we just chat about what are your needs? If you go to the physician, you will never have the second visit to this doctor. If you are, on the other hand, doing some pre-work, some more analysis, seeing what is maybe the interest of this company, what is in the publicly available information about this, where might be their focus, and so on. Do some pre-work, do some analysis, and maybe how can I potentially match what I am assuming it's their need, and then coming potentially with a pitch which is potentially specific. It might be wrong, but it's specific. It will show me, first of all, a lot of effort doing in understanding me. I might be much more open than starting sharing. That's very good. We are covering this. However, we do not have covered that. And suddenly you start sharing your needs. Instead of just coming and say, hey, that's me. What do you need? That, yeah, I think even in our social engagement, it does not work like that.
Completely. That's what we've got time for. Thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully I'll speak to your ChatGPT version in 3 years' time.
To my digital twin. Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank
it's
you.
a pleasure.
So my name is Henry Regan. I'm the global head of CRM at Pharmaceuticals. Leveraging all of that expertise that we do have in-house is critical. Maybe you haven't thought of everything. Maybe you need support. Maybe you need development as well.